はい、
なんか綺麗なところにいました。
ありがたい施設を今から通っていくらしいです。我々だいぶ先頭集団から遅れてますけども
なんかお金かかってそうな
かかってますね。これは
相当金かかってますよね、これね。
これ周りにあるのはこれ水族館じゃないな、なんかいい感じのアクアリウム的な映像が流れてますね。
AI 研究者今井翔太さんと探求する AI クエスト、マイクロソフト本社取材第2弾です。今回は AI データセンターの裏側に迫ります。マイクロソフトは年間で18兆円という世界最大規模のデータセンター投資の真っ最中です。独自開発の半導体チップや量子コンピューターの秘密ラボにも潜入。私中川と今井さんで現場を見てきました。
映りますね。
GitHub、マイクロソフトの大きなテーマの一つとしてデータセンターの、
はい、僕は個人的に技術的に気になっているところとかは、冷却ですね。
AI data center easily get really hot because of GPUs and all the chips.
So you're absolutely right. It's hotter than it had been historically.
Over 400 data centers. I think we're 140 countries now. So there's what we do at Microsoft, and then there's what we do with some of our partners like OpenAI. But we also have chip diversity. And so we, of course, have an amazing partnership with NVIDIA, but we also recently announced Maia 200, which is our own chip.
It outperforms Trainium V3 as well as our TPU V7 from a performance standpoint. We are first in the industry to build that liquid cooling solution that can provide that cooling directly to the chip.
量子のコンピューターって極限状態の環境じゃないと動かないみたいなので、だからこういう特殊な筒みたいなところにあって、
量子コンピューターの本体は実はめちゃくちゃ小さいチップなんです。
And ultimately it gets you to what we call Maia 1. Right now it's only got 8 qubits, and I'll show you more of this. You will have more computational power for a certain set of problems in the palm of your hands than the entire world put together.
AI の競争とかもチャット GPT の前にあった積み重ねが最終的に勝負を決めるみたいなことを言ってるんですね。そういう今は決定打にならないかもしれないけど研究しとくというのはむしろステージ変わった時に強くなる可能性あるので、
今回、やっぱりマイクロソフトの大きなテーマの一つとしてそう設備投資めちゃくちゃ何十兆円もやってるみたいな話があったんですけど、
ハイパースケーラーですからね。
何に投資してるかというとデータセンターのわけですよ。
ちゃんと持続可能なのかどうかで、持続可能かどうかってやっぱりマイクロソフト非常に責任ある企業なので、ちゃんと考えてると僕は思います。電力の話とか今日ここに来る前までも昨日までのツアーでいっぱい話聞いてきましたし、で僕は個人的に技術的に気になってるところとかは冷却ですね。冷却は空冷と水冷とかあるんですけども、その辺の冷却とかでなんか新しいことやってないかというのはちょっと今日聞いていきたいと思ってます。これ今日の前までにちょっとデータセンター GPU の話聞いてると、マイクロソフトどうもその辺取り組んでる節があったので、ちょっとやっぱ責任者に聞けるということで聞いていきたいと思います。
いろんなことを聞いていきたいですね。チップが見れるということなんですが、今井さん的には注目点ってありますか？
いや多分物理チップ見ても分かんないですよ正直これははっきり言って。
でも ASIC ってやっぱいろんなところが開発してて、もうどこのハイパースケーラーにも不可欠みたいになってるんです。
ASIC はですね、結構難しくて、特化するってことはやはり現状最適とされているものに対して何らかいい性質を持つものを作るわけですけども、NVIDIA は一方でずっとその前からある汎用的なものを使っているので、じゃあその汎用的なものを削ぎ落として今の AI に特化させた方がいいじゃないかという思想は、正しいといえば正しいですが、それが絶対とは限らない。実際今ディープシーク、少なくとも今これ撮ってる時点でディープシークは結構怪しい動きをしているので、根本的なアーキテクチャ変更とかあるかもしれないですしみたいなことを考えると NVIDIA はやっぱり何が起きても彼らは積むことはないんですよ。
特定のものに特化しすぎてないから
しすぎてないので、もともと別にそんな出てくる前からビデオグラフィックスのやつ作ってたのを、そのまま今日が続けたらなんかもう業界最先端行っちゃったみたいなところで強い。だから NVIDIA 以上の性能を出そうとするとやはり何かを犠牲にして特化しないといけないんですけども、すぐ変わっちゃうかもしれないって考えるとなかなかリスキーな行為では あります。まあただ研究しておくことに越したことはないし、 NVIDIA に依存しすぎるのは、まあ、困るといえば困る。シンプルに NVIDIA チップが足りてない。
まあ、例えばマイクロソフトのその Maia っていうチップは、一番まあビッグテックの中では最近なので、後発といえば後発なんですけど、AWS、Amazon なんかはトレーニアムっていうチップがあって、あれはアンソロピックも OpenAI も大量に購入するみたいな話になってきて、なんかああいうモデル開発会社がそれだけコミットするってことは、そこに可能性をかけてるってことでもあるわけですよね。
まあ、ビッグテックがチップを作っている理由はシンプルに NVIDIA のチップだけじゃ足りないっていうリスクヘッジの部分と、あとまあ僕これよく言ってるんですけども、今回の AI の競争とかも AI が本格に出てくるチャット GPT の前にあった積み重ねが最終的に勝負を決めるみたいなことを言ってるんですね。と考えると、まあそういう今は決定打にならないかもしれないけど研究しとくというのはむしろステージ変わった時に強くなる可能性あるので、まあ、そこでやってるんじゃないか
とかなんとか話してきましたけど、
そう好きそうですか。
マイヤ
はい
通販ダイエットを見ていきましょう。見たところでじゃあ何がわかるか
まあもしかしたらわかるかもしれない。
You all know that AI is fundamentally changing how we work and what we work and how we solve the solutions. And for that, we really need to reimagine every layer of the stack, right from the silicon to the system, to the solution, the rack, the infrastructure in the data center as well, so that we are able to provide that optimized solutions for our customers. This is the Maia 200 system, which we recently announced in January timeframe. This is 30% more better in terms of compared to our previous generation. It outperforms Trianium V3 as well as our TPU V7 from a performance standpoint. It is built based on the 3 nanometer TSMC processes as well. These are all the cold plates that we have on top of it, where we are providing cooling directly to the chip. And these are designed, there's a lot of innovation that went into it, where we are first in the industry to build that liquid cooling solution that can provide that cooling directly to the chip and drive that efficiencies, both from a power standpoint and from a cost standpoint. All this innovation is driving efficiency at an entire stack level. So you can, basically provide inference into large language models, to agentic workloads, Copilot, and it also runs across various models as well with GPT 5.2, Copilot, and different large language models.
どうですかって。
意外と重いです。
意外と重い。
はい、
これが GPT を動かす。これです。
これの上 GPT 動いて、まあ Azure で動いてはいるんでしょうけども。
So you said GPT 5.2 runs on Maia 200?
That's right.
No.
へえ。
だそうです。
マジなのか。
So it provides direct cooling to our chips to drive those efficiencies from an end-to-end standpoint. We think of, when we talk about cooling, we talk about cooling at every layer in the stack, right from the silicon to the servers and to the entire rack level that goes in the data center. And when we design cooling solutions, we also think about how sustainable they are, so that we are designing that to our existing data centers. It can deploy into any air-cooled data centers and to the future data centers. So the next generation that you would not have ever seen before is the investments the team is already doing in the microfluidics. That is basically taking it to the next level from a cooling standpoint, where we are going down and basically etching on the chip itself so that you're providing the cooling directly to the chip there. And this is going to be the next generation, where you'll be looking at how we are cooling higher TDP parts, right? And very high heat resistant parts. So that's from a microfluidic standpoint.
So why do we need microfluidics? Why do we need it?
It's basically going to drive, as you see, the workloads are going to get even more intense and more denser. So this is the next level of innovation that the team is already doing, where we are going to provide that cooling to the chip so that you can basically take more higher TDP parts. Higher, you can support higher temperatures as well, and provide the cooling to drive efficiencies and lower the power consumption, lower the energy, and make it that, from a sustainability standpoint as well.
So does it contribute to the more efficiency?
Reducing the power, right?
Chips.
Yeah. Yes. The power consumption is the biggest thing that it can help address from a cooling standpoint. It provides.
Is it deployed in Maia 200 or?
No, it is the future that
Next
we have
generation.
seen before. So this is where we are trying to show you guys to see what we are investing in from our technology advancements. Worldwide, but this is one of our biggest labs.
取れないってことなんで音声だけでお
取れない。
届けします。普通のビデオではありますが、ここに何があるんでしょう。
何があるのか上から見て僕分かると思えないんだけどな、そんな撮られても。
まあ念には念をって話ですね。本当によほどの専門家なら見たら分かるみたいなのがいろいろあるのかな。
僕は分かんない少なくとも。
Sounds good. So this is a lab that has the scale testing lab that I talked about. It has multiple different racks. So but before we get into the lab, as I said, it's going to be noisy because there are multiple racks running and a lot of servers. So it's going to be nice because it simulates a real data center environment. So you guys can, each of you help yourself with the earplugs.
本物のデータセンターみたいな環境ができてる。何すんのこれ。なんか被るの。あれです？あ、イヤープラグ。耳栓をするそうです。いや、例えばキャンディー。なんかキャンディーを売ってるガシャポンみたいなところにたくさんの耳栓が入っております。
今完璧にしちゃったら聞こえないのか。結構防音性が高い。
なんか今から騒音の激しいところに音だけでお届けします。
This is like a real data center kind of an environment.
実際のデータセンターみたいな。こんなにブワンブワンなってんですね。
まあ動いてるところは僕もあまり見たことないんです。
普通は動いてるデータセンターがなかなか入らない。
まあデータセンターに入りましたみたいな動画とかも結構ありますし、イーロンがやってるコロッサスっていうめちゃくちゃでかいところで潜入動画とかあるんですけども、多分それ動いてなかったので、
そう、大体動く前に人入れるみたいなのがある。
そうですね。
ものすごい音してます。
結構レアです。
それはだってあんな苦労してチップにまで水を送りたいみたいなぐらい冷却するものを普通のベリーの中で冷却するわけですから、ものすごい音は鳴りますよ。もう終わり？
終わりかな？
あ、まだ入る。
あ、こっちの音は鋭そう。
This is Maia 200.
ああ、前ちょっと。
Maia 200. This is Maia 200. So that is running right now.
前そう。
These are running the testing and validation right now. This is similar.
これマイヤ200が動いてる。
This is a Maia 200 rack.
ものすごい音してます。Where does this sound come from? The fan?
Yeah.
Oh, 冷却
There's a
ファン。
lot of fans and power supplies and everything inside it.
So is this like a inside the Fairwater data center? Is it that noisy
Yes.
inside?
It's even more. Yeah.
Even more.
And you
Okay.
see you have several racks come together.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
this is something like
Okay. フェアウォーターというアメリカで多分マイクロソフトの一番大きいデータセンターで、あれが複数ラック動いてるから、
はい。
もっとうるさいよっていう
まあそう
話でした。
でしょうね。
Yeah, that's the end of the tour with respect to the labs that we wanted to walk you guys through today.
Thank you.
はい、まあ今いろいろとなんかデータセンターっぽいラックとか見てきたわけですけども、まあめちゃくちゃ動いてて音もすごかった。専用の耳栓があってですね、はい、これをつけて入るぐらいすごかったんですけども、理工系のラボに置いてあるサーバーって本来あんなに 出ないんですよ。音とかも出なくて、ちなみにサーバーがなんか七色に光るゲーミング PC みたいに光るの、なんで光るのってたまに言われるんですね。あれたまに理工系のラボに偉い人が視察に来るときに、我々のラボってあんなにガリガリ動いてないので、なんか動いてる風を演出するために光らせるっていう
そんなことがですね。
そう、あれは分かりやすくてですね、で使われてるんじゃないかっていう都市伝説というか、まあ割と本当なんですけども。
どうですか？
僕は個人的にはこういうとこ来るとテンション上がりますけれども、ただ残念ながら僕は何も理解できない
とにかくその量子のコンピューターってすごい極限状態の環境じゃないと動かないみたいなので、すごい極低温、極低温って言うんですけど、すごい低い温度のところでしか動かないですよね。だからこういう特殊ななんか筒みたいなところにあって、やってるわけですけど。
量子コンピューターの本体は実はめちゃくちゃ小さいチップなんですけど、
そう
それを動かすためにこんなとてつもない機
そうですよね。
器が必要という、
何の音なんですかねこれ。
なんかガスとか送り込んでる音なんですね、これは。ここに入る前にめちゃくちゃなんか物々しい説明受けましたからね。なんかファイヤー
確かになんか
サイレンが鳴っても落ち着いてこっからみたいな、なんか
落ち着いて行動してくださいっていうのか、
ここはガチでリアルで動いてるリアルワーキングなラボなので、なんか起こるかもしれないけど、起こった時は安心してみたいな、
あんま言われたことないです。
あんまり言われたことないですよね。
このテックの世界でそんななんか
なかなかないですね。
シチュエーションってなかなかないですよね。
コンピューターサイエンスの世界だと、少なくとも人工知能をやってる我々の界隈で、あるといえばあるわ、リアルフィジカルロボを動かしてるところがたまにある。
まあそうですね、
動いてるので
だんだんテックがフィジカルなものになっている、
Quantum computers are not general purpose. They are not going to replace in our phones or our mobile. Well, then how the heck does it solve these big problems? Number one is what we call superposition. So everybody's familiar with classic computers. If you took a comp sci class, a bit is a 0 or a 1. That means that a qubit, different than a regular bit, this superposition notion means that I can capture all sorts of state at once. That means it actually captures a lot of data in one spot. So think of it as massively parallel, being able to think through it. So then thinking about where does quantum then fit in? Everybody's familiar with CPUs. We have those in the data centers today, right? They pretty much run the internet and back office applications and things like that. Everyone's familiar with GPUs. More than often today, that's about AI, right? It's about training and inference. Quantum is just another accelerator. Quantum processing unit is another type of compute. That means that in the future, compute is hybrid. We're going to use a combination of all three, right?
This is what we showcased last year when we talked about Maia 1. And ultimately, it gets you to what we call Maia 1. Right now, it's only got 8 qubits. And the idea here is you can fit 1 million qubits in that form factor. So in summary, you will have more computational power for a certain set of problems in the palm of your hands than the entire world put together. I mean, that is one hell of a statement to make. And the size, breaks my heart. This is our size. These are some of the competitive sizes. Orders of magnitude different.
でも AI の研究の中でね、量子と組み合わせるとこうなるみたいな話とかってあるんですか？
量子機械学習は本がいくつか出てるぐらいには、まあ有名な話ではありますよ。
どういう話なんですか？
ただ今のニューラルネットを使ってみたいな感じではないです。本当に一部の問題がまあ楽になるかもしれないねぐらいの話で、とてもメインストリームに食い込んでくるようなものではないです。
さっき CPU、GPU、QPU みたいな話がありましたけど、まあだから CPU、GPU だと解けきれない問題があるから使うよっていう、そういうでよりまあ
で非常に一番有名なものが、いわゆる組み合わせ問題 であれは、そもそも既存のアルゴリズムだと、これ完全に計算理論の話なんですけども、基本的に効率のいいアルゴリズムが、どれだけ効率のいいアルゴリズムのとんでもなく時間かかってしまうということは原理的に明らかになっているので、今の CPU、GPU みたいなもので解くと、基本的に楽に計算できる手法が存在しないんですけども、量子コンピューターだとそういう単なる組み合わせの一番いい組み合わせ探すみたいな問題は超高速にできるので、いいみたいな、そういう量子コンピューターにとって解きやすい問題というのはあるんですよ、計算理論的に。でそういう問題に、今量子コンピューター利用できるかもしれないね、でもそういう問題はそもそも何なのかなっていうのを探してる。
なるほど。
はい。
そういうことですね。
なので、さっきのあっちで説明聞いてる時言ってましたけど、普通の AI の問題あれを全部突っ込むっていうのはさすがに今
効率良くないって話ですよね。
はい。
直近でもトランプ大統領がなんかおいビッグテックのやつが電気代自分で払えとかって言って、それを同意したみたいなニュースが流れてたんですけど、今井さんとフィジカル AI の話をした時に、いやこれそのフィジカル AI がどんどん普及したら電気と水食いまくるよねみたいな話をしてたと思うんですよね。だからそこのエネルギーどうすんだみたいな話を実は今日データセンターのエネルギー担当の幹部の人に話を聞くことになっていて、そんなインタビューも入ってますが、データセンターのエネルギー、これ今井さんどんなふうなこと考えてますか？
例えばイーロン・マスク今作ってるコロッサスっていうデータセンターは、ミシシッピ川の真横にドガンと立って20万個ぐらいの GPU 動いてるんですけども、基本的にでっかい河川とかの近くに作らないと水を引けない。で基本的にやはり水冷が中心になってきているので、
水で冷やすってことですね。
立地がかなり制約されるんですね。
確かに川がないとでかい、水がいっぱい取れるところじゃ作れないみたいな。
シンプルに立地制約されるし、そんな水は我々人間もいっぱい使うものなので、そんな使ってくれるなっていう話も当然あるわけなので、
いろいろ聞いていきたいと思います。
Whether you're at Microsoft or, say, 4 or 5 other companies, you're seeing literally an unprecedented investment in the tech sector investing in infrastructure. The steam engine led to railroads that required railroad tracks. Electricity required power plants and electrical grid. The telephone required telephone lines and systems. The automobile required roads and highways. The airplane required airports. So in a sense, a very real sense, this is the 6th wave of technology-driven infrastructure expansion since the start of the Industrial Revolution. I think Microsoft is probably investing more broadly and more globally than any other company when it comes to AI and cloud infrastructure.
The Trump administration expects the big tech companies to ensure massive data center investments don't raise consumer electricity bills. So as Microsoft scales its AI products, how do you balance this tension between protecting consumer energy costs, driving commercial AI?
So when it comes to, say, electricity, what it does mean, as we said, is first we'll invest, we'll pay for the types of additions that are needed electrically so that others, consumers, and the public don't see data centers increase the cost of electricity on the bills they pay. And that means, in part, closer partnerships with utilities to plan farther in advance. When we sign up for electricity, we're going to pay for all the electricity that we sign up for, even if we don't use all of it. It really involves 5 sets of issues. It's electricity, water, jobs, taxes, and skills. And I think communities have more than a reasonable right to ask hard questions of big companies. If we're going to come in and build these big buildings and add to all of this infrastructure, we need to be clear about how we're going to do right by them in all 5 of these areas.
Thanks for your time today.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. So CEO Satya Nadella mentioned the company added 1 gigawatt of capacity just in the last 3 months of the 2025. And how are you estimating the increase in capacity for the next year or 5 or even 10 years?
Yeah, it's so hard to sort of plan to exactly what the number looks like because I think it changes all the time. So what you heard from Satya is it's a very good indicator for what we can definitely continuously expect. And then it's looking at all the different elements, whether it's servers or energy and everything coming together to figure out how we can actually meet the capacity demands as they grow even faster than that. So that number definitely looks very similar to the numbers that we would expect in this quarter and in future quarters from the energy side. And then it's an opportunity to figure out if there are other places where we could grow even faster based on the energy availability in those regions.
What about Japan? Japan is, I think, one of the biggest AI market for now.
And Japan has been one of our longest standing cloud regions. Japan is for sure a tight market from both the energy perspective and from the land perspective. But we absolutely, like many other locations, would love to find opportunities to grow in Japan faster. I think what you see with AI specifically is really the need for speed is driving a lot of where we are going to in locations. And so some of the locations end up being surprising, but Japan is a great opportunity for us, and we'd love to find those opportunities to speed up our development in the country.
How do you do that, to find land and the energy sources in the tight market?
Yeah, the typical way is really to partner closely with the utilities and to figure out where the places are on their grid that they say are the opportunities. And going back to that initial point I made, you have opportunities to go to places that you maybe wouldn't have gone before. So we can have a different conversation with even the utilities in Japan, where it doesn't have to be as focused on just show me what's available near Tokyo. And often it coincides with availability and energy in some of those markets because it tends to not be as densely populated and a little bit further away from some of those markets.
Right. So AI data center easily get really hot because of GPUs and all the chips, and so we need cooling, and that's why we need electricity and water. And how are you estimating the amount of the electricity and water to make AI work for the next 5 to 10 years?
Right. And it's important to remember that a lot of what we're seeing is very much based on the initial GPU chip development and what that looks like. So you're absolutely right. It's hotter than it had been historically. It's also an opportunity for us, for instance, to revisit what that cooling sort of system would look like for these particular AI data centers, training loads, et cetera. So we can go into those and actually find opportunities to reduce our water consumption in very significant ways because we can do things like a closed loop. We can look at liquid to liquid chip cooling, but it does increase slightly some of the energy utilization, but it does reduce the water utilization. So that goes into a lot of the numbers that you're hearing. The numbers are larger because cooling is required, of course, during specific times of the year. But it's not an expectation that you would always be consuming the maximum amount of power. It's just recognizing that in very specific times of the year, you will have to lean on more electricity for that cooling, but actually have the opportunity not to lean on as much water.
I think the main options for current data centers are air cooling or water cooling. But in particular, when it comes to large-scale AI training today, I think large-scale water facilities are required. So, for example, the Colossus by Elon Musk, XAI, is near the Mississippi River. So, however, this means that the location of data centers are quite limited. So, do you have any idea for cooling facilities other than air or water that would allow data centers to be unconstrained by location requirements?
Yeah, so we will get the engineers to discuss with you because we actually don't have to consume significant amounts of water. So it does give us a lot more flexibility and opportunity. So the liquid to liquid cooling actually can use chemical cooling and a closed loop water system, so you don't have to use the volumes of water that people typically think about. Air cooling, even in some of the hottest regions, you're able to use a lot more air cooling than people realize because, as we all know, environments cool down significantly at nighttime. So you're not just talking about sort of that peak moment of the day, you're talking about the entirety of the day and what that opportunity looks like. So even though we will use some electricity for the mechanical cooling, for instance, you won't have to use it most of the year. You'll only use it in isolated circumstances. And then some of the other chip cooling, the actual cooling of the chip itself allows you to really focus that cooling in a way where you can dissipate it differently.
Microsoft made a 20-year agreement with Constellation Energy to reopen the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant in 2020. 28, I think, which actually closed in 2019. Why nuclear now, and what was the thinking behind this decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I really do think we led a completely different discussion around nuclear, because a lot of the discussion around carbon-free energy resources really focused on renewable energy for so long. And we felt it was important that it really did take an all-of-the-above carbon-free energy approach that looked at nuclear as well. Historically, one of the main reasons you didn't hear about nuclear is because it took so long for nuclear to get constructed or added to the grid. But just because of market dynamics here in the US and some other locations, you actually saw nuclear being retired from the generation fleet because of economic reasons. So we're always focused on making sure that all of the plants, whether they're nuclear or any other type, are always going to be safely operated and able to come back to the grid in a way that makes sense for the communities that they support. And when we looked at that particular plant in Pennsylvania, it was an opportunity where you still had the infrastructure in place, and more importantly, you still had the community and the support of the people, including the people that used to work at the facility, that are able to come back and bring that carbon-free electricity back to the grid much faster than you would typically see with nuclear. So we actually have seen that happening now with other facilities around the world, where not every single facility can come back necessarily to the grid if they've been retired. But to the extent that they are and they make sense and the community is supportive, it's an opportunity to get those carbon-free electrons at scale, which is a real need for us now.
I think there's been discussion around safety about the nuclear power plant, and how do you make sure it's safety?
So we are working with Constellation, who we think is really a leader in the field of operating nuclear fleets. And so they're responsible for the safety and making sure that comes back online. We've actually worked with the broader Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the US to figure out how we can actually accelerate but still maintain safety. So we've developed AI tools, for instance, to figure out how do you keep that priority on safety but still get to a place where you take advantage of current tools so that you can accelerate the entire process.
Right. And the companies like Amazon and Google are focusing on the small modular reactor, SMRs. And how is Microsoft different from those companies in terms of energy procurement?
Right, we're definitely looking at them as well. So we truly do have an all-of-the-above decarbonization strategy that says, how do we get to a decarbonized energy sector as fast as possible? It gets harder sometimes in some markets, but at the same time, what is the right resource that you can add? So SMRs are a great tool, and we really do hope to see those small modular reactors really scale up quickly. But for us, we did focus initially on that Crane Energy transaction in Pennsylvania because we could get line of sight to both certainty and to scale very fast. So we thought that was extremely important, but it wasn't at the expense or to say that we wouldn't look at SMRs. It's something we actively look at and figure out where it makes sense within our portfolio.
And Microsoft also invests in the nuclear fusion technology, like the company called Helion Energy. And what do you think about the potential of nuclear fusion technology, and why is it important for the energy standpoint?
Well, that really is where you can kind of go and expand even the thinking about how energy grids can work. So fusion has been such an aspirational technology for so long, like my entire life and probably many people before me. And so it's an opportunity to really take advantage of the moment that we're in now, where energy needs are so much more dramatic than what we've seen historically, and especially carbon-free energy needs. So partnering with Helion, we've talked to many others within the fusion community, and candidly, we're rooting for all of them, because I think to the extent that we can actually see those new technologies become part of that all of the above toolbox that we can deploy, it just scales from a much better standpoint and gives you opportunities to go to markets where maybe renewables don't work as well for them, either because of economics or because the technology is just not suited, or maybe even it's because they just have a very, very small footprint. And so when you look at those kinds of opportunities, that's where fusion really does present a lot of future potential for many markets, not just the US.
Do you talk to Satya Nadella regularly about energy?
In the meetings, we have occasional syncs with the leadership team across multiple fronts, and of course there's lots of interactions taking place. Energy is a hot topic, so we very often do get to update on what the policy profile looks like, what the strategy looks like with all of the members of the leadership team.
Okay, great.
Thank you very
very
much.
much for your time. Thank you. That was great.